Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Imaging USA Expo floor. And I am pleased to announce that we've been joined by none other than the famous Russ Harrington.
Hey, man, how are you, buddy?
It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you.
Yeah. So now that we have you here with us, we want to talk about some of your awesome fun shoots. So we were just kind of conversing a little bit about Brian Setzer.
Yeah.
And you had posted images from a session that you had done with him. What are some of the ways that you get your ideas for these shoots? Does the artist come to you and say, I want to do this, or they're just like, you just do your thing?
Well, it depends on the budget, right? But the funny thing about that shoot is we shot it outside of Minneapolis. I'm not sure where he lives, but we shot that album cover in Brian's garage. So I remember the night before, I went to the Home Depot close and bought some anti-fatigue rubber mats and made a background out of those, lit them from behind. That's one of the really cool setups he's using. We set up a silk on his garage door. He's got some vintage motorcycles. So the album cover, his last album cover, was shot in the garage with snow on the ground, somewhere not far from Minneapolis.
That is so cool. And that was all your brainchild then? You just...
You know, just for years, depending on the budget, I would go buy fabrics, I would rent props, I would rent set walls from, a company that shot video and convention stuff. They would have just these set pieces, and we would make rooms or 90-degree corners or just backgrounds. So I just became adapted, just like going, I can go in Home Depot or Lowe's and come out of there with a couple $100s of backgrounds that aren't a white seamless or a gray seamless. Because, the artist needs something that's a little different. Now, if it's a clean shoot, we can shoot on white seamless all day long. But if we need some interesting looking stuff, I can take 3 anti-fatigue mats, hang them up, light them from behind. And, I think it's on briansetzer.com. But he's just one of those, kind of guitar heroes that I got to photograph.
That's so cool. And now after you just told everybody that that's what you did, we'll see how many backgrounds are made out of anti-fatigue mats that show up in Print Comp next year.
To me, I want to. If you make it look better than mine, I'll send you something free. I'm not sure what.
So you were telling us before we started recording that you've been in photography for 40
This
years.
year is my 40th year. I got a business license in 1983. Had a head full of hair. Well, had hair. Some smaller size jeans, and newly married and had dreams, and I shot about 60 weddings and did a lot of portrait shoots, had the bad wicker chair I always talk about. I mean, we were young and married and needed to make money, so you don't just become an album cover shooter in Nashville in 1983.
So now that you mentioned that, how did you create that transition to doing album covers and being somebody who was as sought after as you are now?
Well, what I did is I had a portfolio of all this model stuff that I had done with kind of blown out skin tone and cool backdrops. And I figured out, okay, how do you make a living in Nashville if you're not want to be a portrait or a wedding photographer? And that would be the music industry. So I started showing that portfolio to the Christian music agencies, record labels, I mean. And I started shooting gospel covers. And then I tried to get a country break and got a big Trisha Yearwood editorial shoot. And then she hired me for an album cover and shot about 800, 900 album covers.
What, 8 or 900?
We think it's around. Now, there's a lot of little ones, not everyone sold 1 million records. I mean, somebody could have sold, I shot a lot of bands that did one record and may have sold 100 albums out of their trunk. I still shot the album cover.
That's awesome.
I did monster album cover shoots with 5 assistants, and I did little things with a whiteboard, with 1 assistant. So you tried to help everybody out because you never knew who was going to be that artist that stuck with you. Like I did Rascal Flatts' first record. Who knew they were going to be, Rascal Flatts?
That's so cool. So I'm not going to put you completely on the spot.
Which was the favorite?
Yeah, which is the favorite? Because, I mean, that has to be the canned question that everybody ever asks you. And it doesn't have to be a particular person, but what was your favorite shoot that you really are, like, it's one of those things where the stars just align, you're like, yes.
We did a Tim McGraw shoot in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania at a steel factory. We actually did a 2-day shoot. We did 19 setups. This was all on film. This is pre-digital, shooting RZ and 35 millimeter. And I just remember that as being just this amazing shoot. I mean, we shot on a bus, but I can look at any album cover and remember how we lit it, where we were, who the assistants were. It's just good memories. It doesn't have to be a monster budget with, big set pieces. We just did a Keith Urban shoot earlier this year, with 4 assistants and a 90-inch monitor and, shooting clean stuff, but that was amazing and fun. So sometimes you got art directors, sometimes you got white seamless, but, you still got to make beautiful images.
Well, I'm sure that you could probably talk for literally days and weeks about all the experiences you've had, and it's so cool to have the relationship with you that we do. We really appreciate seeing your face all the time.
Tootsie Rolls, a lot of Tootsie I remember the first time I visited the lab. I told Mike, I said, take me to the Tootsie Rolls. He goes, you want to see the pallet of Tootsie Rolls? And sure enough, they were just,
yeah,
it was a pallet and a half. For sure.
And I think that we sent out like 11,000 pounds of Tootsie Pops last year. Isn't that insane? Think of how many teeth we rot out in a year.
You just feel like a little kid. I mean, it's just before you start disassembling to find that 11 by 14 because you have quite the tape department. So you just kind of you take a moment, you have the Tootsie Roll, okay, here we go. Now we're going to find this print within this cardboard. But I mean, they've always been packed like it's the most important stinking print in the world. And I've always appreciated that. It's like, how do I not damage this print with this X-Acto knife?
Yeah, right. I don't want to take us.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. It's always great to see you. And we hope you've enjoyed hanging out, and we will be back with you shortly.